In December 1993, Michael Jackson was forced to face his toughest audience.
Why are you doing this to me?
The DA and cops from the LAPD investigated allegations of child abuse.
It broke his heart to the point of tears. It really disturbed him.
This is very humiliating, very embarrassing for me.
The police were collecting evidence to corroborate the story of Michael's accusers.
Can you stand on the chair, please?
So many knives in his back, people that he thought he could trust, stabbing him over and over and over again.
How did the king of pop get to this?
We need to get close-ups from all angles.
Physically abused by a violent father.
He couldn't catch me half the time, but when he would catch me, oh my God.
Living his life in the very grown-up music business.
You learn a lot about relationships and sexuality and violence that a kid shouldn't know.
Trapped by his childhood success, Michael Jackson struggled to embrace the adult world.
Was he straight? Was he gay? Was he bisexual?
Lisa, please.
Was he not sexual at all?
I got 10.
Michael remained childlike forever.
He saw himself more as this kind of Peter Pan character who never really grew up.
Eventually, allegations of child molestation followed, investigated by the LAPD.
Please.
This is the story of an artist who was lit up with talent.
We used to sing songs together and harmonize together, and I knew where their talent was.
But unable to go from boy to man.
I said, "You bathe in Perrier?" And he said, "Yeah, I like the bubbles." Right?
And unable to create his own family.
He phoned me up out of the blue and said, would I be a sperm donor for him? And I thought, yeah, well, what the hell, why not?
Michael Jackson was a pop genius, selling 750 million albums, charting 20 #1 US and UK hits, and earning over $1 billion. But his gift was also his curse.
With a talent like that, he could never belong to himself. This is where his tragedy has its roots. He was a tragic figure.
Unprepared for the trappings of mega fame and success, he lost sense of where Michael Jackson the pop star began and where Michael Jackson the person ended.
There was no umbilical cord. There was nothing grounding him. It was sad.
In order for him to be Michael Jackson, it cost him so much. It cost him his life. I guess it's a bittersweet tale.
When Michael Jackson created his dream home, he built the Neverland Ranch, a 2,500-acre estate that included a zoo and a fairground.
He wanted to be Peter Pan. He built Neverland, probably in thinking if he was a child, what would be his ideal paradise.
Neverland was Michael's monument to childhood, wonder, and play.
His reality is other people's fantasies. He was just in a world where he could and would do whatever popped up.
Michael built Neverland to entertain children, to make them happy and carefree. But he also built it so he could remain a child forever. Michael Jackson and Michael Jackson's career were forged in America's industrial heartland. He was born in 1958, the seventh child of Joe and Catherine, in Gary, Indiana, a suburb of Chicago.
Gary was just amazing. City on the move is what they called it, the city on the move. We had just got the first black mayor of a large city in America. People had work, there were businesses here booming, there were nightclubs, there were theaters.
Joe worked the steel mills, back-breaking, dangerous work, and bought a small two-bedroom house.
Oh, not again.
Catherine raised 9 children here.
Boys.
Hey, Dad.
Make sure you save me some money now.
Hey, Dad.
They were a very close-knit family. I mean, they're all living in the same room with bunk beds. I mean, there was no money.
Come on. So chitlins again?
You carry on with that nonsense. You'll be lucky you get any food at all.
You boys get yourself ready for dinner now. Honey, we won't live like this forever. One day I'm gonna buy one of them big houses up on the hill.
You have to think about it from his perspective. What are your kids gonna do? Especially black kids being raised in America. Like, what is their future? Do you want them to do this? And so I think for Joe, there was a lot of personal, financial, social, maybe even spiritual drive for his kids to be successful.
Jesus, we pray, thank you, amen.
Amen. For struggling black families in the 60s, two of the best routes out of low-paid jobs and rough neighborhoods were becoming either a professional athlete or an entertainer. Michael grew up in the shadow of the great Hollywood performers. He dreamt of artists like Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly, showmen who sang and danced and enchanted, a world away from his sheltered Gary upbringing.
Really done it this time.
What are we gonna do now?
Your father and me never had no TV when we were growing up.
Here we go again.
What do you used to do, Mama?
They didn't play. They didn't go out, and their mom was, you know, a Jehovah's Witness.
As I went down in the...
They didn't celebrate birthdays. They didn't celebrate Christmas or other holidays. And so that made them kind of a quirky family. They stayed to themselves.
Lord, show me the way.
She's a very strong woman, but she delivered it just in subtlety, softness, and kindness. And wow, that rocks.
Joseph and I used to sing when we first married. I didn't have any children. We used to sing songs together and harmonize together and then Joe got in a group called the Falcons. When the kids came along, they came up listening to music and singing and dancing, and I knew where their talent was.
As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way.
His mother would say he was born like he just had something in him that was outstanding.
Oh, brothers, let's go down, come on down. Oh, brothers, let's go down in the river to pray.
He was so angelic. He was like an angel, like little cherubic, like little angel boy. He was so talented. I mean, he was a force to be reckoned with.
Come on, mothers, let's go down in the river to pray.
Hey, when's that next talent contest up at the school?
I do remember the talent shows in Gary, Indiana. It was extremely competitive because there was so much talent here.
That's just your style. The way you smile got me thinking things I shouldn't be thinking that.
You had to be dynamic. You had to be almost ready to play Carnegie Hall just to play the high school talent show. You'd had to be really sharp.
Simply irresistible.
Aged 5, Michael formed a vocal group with his elder brothers, Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, and Marlon.
Simply irresistible.
And their harmony and everything was so perfect. To me, I couldn't listen to it for crying because I was so happy for them and I was so thrilled and didn't think that they had that in them. I know they had talent in them, but the way they sound together was beautiful.
I wanna have it all. It's right, but I'm not giving up till I get enough.
Again. And again until we get it right.
All right.
Okay, come on.
Let's go.
Joe believed that his kids had to work twice as hard as everyone else because If you're only somewhat good or kind of good, then you don't stand a chance.
Every Friday night, they had an amateur night at Roosevelt High School. And the Jacksons won pretty much every night.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Jackson 5. The one and only, the Jackson 5. The Jackson 5.
Word got around that there's these terrific kids. Then they started getting jobs over in Chicago. I would be coming from Chicago and I'd hear someone blowing their horn, and it would be the Jacksons, you know, on their way home.
When he was only 6, Michael and his brothers were going from amateur to pro. Home movies show a prodigy, a precocious little boy with the artistry of an adult, who could hold an audience on behalf of his band, now called the Jackson 5.
Marlon, bed now. Okay, Tito. Hey, Joe.
He wanted to be a star, which is a dream any poor person in the so-called ghettos of America had aspirations to be successful and rich and famous. He had all those things that were beyond his wildest dreams.
Five, 6, 7, 8.
Guys.
What the hell was that?
Joe was determined to lift his kids out of poverty.
Told you what would happen if...
And for him, that end justified extreme means. Behind the showbiz smile, Michael lived in dread of his father. It took him 40 years to talk about Joe's reign of terror.
He would lose his temper. I just remember hearing my mother scream, "Joe, you're gonna kill him, you're gonna kill him, stop it, you're gonna kill him," you know, and I was so fast, you know, he couldn't catch me half the time, but when he would catch me, oh my God, it was bad.
The first time I ever met their father, I swear, when I stood this distance from him, I could see the flames of hell in his eyes.
Joe Jackson saw to it that his children would escape the ghetto. And yet there was a terrible price.
5, 6, 7, 8.
The beatings, the isolation, and the relentless work turned Michael's childhood into a prison. Michael never truly forgave his father. In his will, he left everything to his mother, Catherine, and his children. He made no mention of Joe. Michael would eventually escape from his father, but he would never truly escape his childhood, returning to it again and again. Even in his mid-40s, Michael was still casting himself as the lonely, isolated and sad singer, asking his fans to forgive his immaturity. As an adult, Michael would become obsessed with children. He would identify with children so much that he could never truly become a man. His mournful delivery of the song reveals the tragedy behind the legend. At the age of 6, Michael started his touring career, playing venues across the Midwest and as far as the East Coast. From now on, he would be increasingly disconnected from ordinary life.
He only went to public school for a short while and would always be taken out to go on tours. I heard one of his teachers speak, his kindergarten teacher. She said he was gone for maybe a week. And when he came back, he apologized for being gone, but he said, I had to do some shows in New York. I mean, can you imagine?
Oh, can you feel it?
Michael mastered his stagecraft watching older artists perform, soaking up every turn, smile, and mic drop, learning how to capture and hold an audience. Life outside the clubs, though, was tough. The Jacksons had to travel through hostile territory. America was racially segregated.
It was quite dangerous to travel in your tour bus because you had to worry about, you know, possibly the Ku Klux Klan or someone not liking you travel at night.
Michael learned early to fear the outside world.
I mean, black people suffered so hard. They couldn't go to the hotels like nowadays. They could not eat at the restaurants. You couldn't sit in the accommodations. You couldn't use the restrooms.
This was the fight to create a fairer America. It was fought in the streets and on stage.
Years ago, black entertainers, men, could not look at white females in the audience. They had to keep their head down. Imagine that.
The Jackson family could only play in the black venues. A network of funk, soul, rhythm and blues, known as the Chitlin Circuit.
Chitlins is the intestines of a hog, of a pig. So it's like chitlin, the bottom of the entertainment circuit.
The Black American Chitlin Circuit was after-hour clubs in the black community that we had created because we weren't allowed in the mainstream. So you would have maybe a little gambling there, maybe, you know, the married man might have his mistress there.
Touring was a bewildering experience for the young Michael. Being exposed to sexuality and sex at a tender age.
I had to share bedrooms with one of my brothers on the tours. And there was some action going on in my room every night. I could hear it. And my job was to play sleep. And I was told by one of my brothers, no matter what, don't get up, don't open your eyes. I go, I promise I won't. And so I would hear these girls come in, and I would hear them say, is that little Michael? And my brother would say, yeah. And they would go, oh, he's so cute, like that. And I heard everything.
That's not what Marlon and Michael need to see, and Jackie and Jermaine know, Joe.
Our boys are robust. We can take him to the club.
Train a child in the way he should go, and when he is older, he will not depart from it. Proverbs 22:6, Joe.
Oh, don't
I'ma
you
tell
quote me,
you
Bible.
something.
Can you just close that Bible for 1 minute?
No, I will not close that Bible.
The mixed lessons of sex and sin tormented the young Michael. Sex would never be normal for him.
You make a mockery of the Lord's word, okay? Jehovah is watching.
By 1967, the Jackson 5 were earning up to $600 a gig.
And stop.
Joe could give up his job at the steel mill, and the industry was starting to take notice.
You're right.
Why do you want to? Joe, we can't afford this.
Can now. Steel.
Town Records.
Their first contract was with Steeltown Records, and the Jackson 5's first release was the single Big Boy, in which 9-year-old Michael sang about growing up, leaving childish things behind.
Fairy tales and wishful dreams are broken toys, 'cause I'm a big boy now that's looking for someone to love. Oh yeah.
The song sold around 10,000 copies, a modest success in a relatively small corner of the music business.
As a black artist in music, I mean, there were charts that kept you from what they would call crossing over into pop because your sound was whatever to black.
Other artists on the Chitlin circuit thought the Jackson 5 could do better. They put Joe in touch with Motown Records, headed by the legendary Berry Gordy. In 10 years, he had built the company from nothing and become the most powerful man in black music. Motown had broken through the race barrier. The label had notched up 17 #1 singles on the mainstream Billboard Hot 100 chart. With artists like The Temptations, Gladys Knight and the Pips, and their biggest star to date, Diana Ross.
Motown was the most important thing that had happened musically for black people in America for the decades in which it was in existence.
In late July 1968, the Jackson 5 were auditioned on camera and gave the performance of a lifetime, with Michael as their frontman showing off his James Brown moves.
I think Michael really always stood out because his voice was so mature at a young age.
He was a freak of nature in the best sense of that phrase. Very rarely has nature bestowed on one individual that much talent.
The footage was shipped to Berry Gordy in Los Angeles.
People thought he was a midget singing. They didn't think he was really a child.
Uh-huh. Okay, yeah. Catherine!
What's happening?
Motown.
Oh, it was a dream come true. I mean, like God-given, heaven sent. To get there with Motown, the company in the world, with like the Mecca of Black Entertainment, with Berry Gordy. I mean, you couldn't ask for any more. Thank God. Thank Jehovah.
That was it. It was like, no, you made it. It's like, you just bowed down. It was like, that's it. That was the top. That's what you're going for.
Motown released I Want You Back on October 7th, 1969. It immediately hit #1 in the R&B charts, and mainstream America too was ready for a black boy band.
Oh my God, the barriers they were breaking down was that they were crossing over. They crossed over, and they broke down that whole myth of R&B charts only, or soul charts only, and then having the mainstream chart.
For all the work, though, fame and success did not bring freedom for Michael.
By the time the Jacksons have come along, they have established an absolute machinery for greatness. They discover people, but they don't just discover them. They discover them and they put them through the Motown machinery. That includes the studio musicians, the songwriters, the choreographers, the image consultants.
The artist was elevated, but the artist was also controlled. Once they got to a level, they started to bristle against the intense control.
Michael was no stranger to control. Inside the Motown machine, though, the supervision would be total, deciding his music, his image, his behavior, even his sense of reality.
Just how old are you, Michael?
8.
But I thought you were older than that, maybe closer to 11?
Well, I'm not. I'm 8.
But I heard...
The kid said he's 8, all right? Next question.
Next question, please.
At the age of 11, Michael knew he was a product. A pop singer with a huge, joyous voice who was a cute kid.
What the hell was all that?
Oh, what?
You ain't 8 years old.
It's okay. If they say something about me that isn't true, it's a lie. If they say something about my image that isn't true, that's okay. It's not a lie, it's PR.
By the time he could walk and sing, he became public. So he really was out there. He was Michael Jackson from the start, right?
At Motown, the Jackson 5 was a winning formula. 4 #1 singles, over 10 million albums. They even had their own animated TV show. By the mid-1970s, the Jackson 5 was American popular culture. And yet the band's name was misleading. One Jackson clearly stood out.
Michael was always the main singer, right? He was always in the center, and he was always the main dancer, and he was always the main star.
And indeed, this is where the beginning, I think, of his tragedy, this is where his tragedy has its roots. Because with a talent like that, he could never belong to himself. He always belonged to other people because he meant so much to everyone. Everyone needed him to be something for them.
And what Michael's family and label needed was a little boy in front of his brothers singing his heart out. What Michael needed was never considered. At just 14 years old, Michael was already recording solo singles like Rockin' Robin. But on stage, he was forced to perform them as part of the Jackson 5. Off stage, too, Michael's choices were limited. Under the control of his father, Joe, isolated by his family and fame, Michael was a shy and withdrawn teenager.
Michael was a scared little boy at times. And Michael didn't really know how talented he was until later on. And I think he was insecure in many ways. And I think the way that he got over his insecurity was on that stage.
As a performer, Michael was every inch the polished pop star. Young, handsome, famous, and on the verge of manhood. He had the world at his feet. But an interview on Soul Train, America's top TV show for R&B talent, revealed that Michael still enjoyed simple, childlike pleasures.
I feed my birds every morning.
What are some of the birds you had?
Oh, a peacock, pheasants, parrots.
He was at a very awkward stage. He was tall and rail thin and had not quite grown into his manhood and was a long way from boyhood. And there was a soulfulness about him, a kind of humble, but he seemed sad.
The people around Michael struggled with the idea of him growing up. Joe especially wanted Michael to stay the 9-year-old boy under his control, fronting the Jackson 5. To leave the band was to leave the family. Michael's restlessness fixed on a new focus. He found Motown, his record label, as stifling as Joe and the Jackson 5. He decided to go and see rival label Epic on his own.
Michael came into my office and I asked him what he would like to do. He had this big company and we can offer you all sorts of things, and not money, we weren't talking about that. And he said that he would like his own creativity to be heard. And I said, yeah. Your own creativity. You mean you want to write and make music on your own? Yeah. Okay.
It was unfair to go behind our back.
It wasn't behind your back.
We a family, Michael, okay? We the Jacksons. Barry was fine. But now we need to go.
We're dying at Motown.
There are winners and losers in life. And you boys ain't gonna be no losers. Not now. Not ever.
For once, Michael and his father Joseph were in agreement. Motown had bought a boy band, but the Jacksons were no longer boys.
Let's see your hands.
Only Jermaine, married to Berry Gordy's daughter, voted against the move to Epic.
Think about your family.
I am, Michael. I am.
But while Michael had shaken off the fetters of Motown, he still hadn't escaped the family or his father.
I think at Epic they promised Joe more managerial control.
Michael joined Epic when he was 18, signaling a new start as a mature artist. But in many ways, Michael had barely grown at all.
Here he was having hits already and having the genius brain, but as a person, he was like a child. He would take my pocketbook and turn it upside down and everything would fall out. Now, you expect really like a 4-year-old to do that.
Then, shortly after joining Epic, Michael was finally offered a way to break free. Producer Rob Cohen offered him the part of the Scarecrow in the movie The Wiz, alongside a cast of Hollywood greats. He would have to leave the Jackson family home in Los Angeles for 3 months and go to New York on his own. This was an act the family couldn't get in on too.
He was really keen because he understood that to be with Diana Ross, Richard Pryor, Lena Horne, he was getting a chance to put himself in this black superstar firmament. And I think he knew what he could do and what he could show.
Joe immediately spotted the threat.
I don't want you doing this movie. We're a family, Mike. We came up together and we stick together. Get up. You ain't even an actor. Boy, what the hell's wrong with you? You gonna answer me, boy?
Joe was starting to lose control of his child prodigy son, and now Michael had powerful allies.
We didn't want Joe in New York. I had really worked hard to make sure Joe stayed away so that Michael could thrive without a severe father around. Every day, he would commit magic on film.
Though The Wiz was a critical and commercial failure, it was a triumph for Michael.
The way he could dance with those big feet and the complex costume. The thing that has stood the test of time and will always stand the test of time is the performance of Michael Jackson.
The Wiz also introduced Michael to a man who would have a profound influence on his music and career. While recording the soundtrack, he met producer Quincy Jones. The chemistry was immediate.
I could see in Quincy's eyes was like when a leopard looks at a baby goat. I mean, he just saw it. And like it was the beginning of that incredible collaboration.
While filming, Michael was living in his own apartment close to Central Park. This was the Big Apple, home of sex, drugs, and disco.
I said to him one night, why don't we go to Studio 54? It's the best dance club. If there's one person that Studio 54 was created for, it's you. We pulled up to that theater, and I mean, the red velvet rope came up so fast, I thought Mark at the door was going to get himself a whiplash.
Michael was a megastar, adored the world over. But when it came to relationships, he was uncomfortable, awkward, and desperately insecure.
It was an astounding night, and I said, you know, you can have anybody you want. He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, you know, you could take any one of those girls home, you know, you're free now. You're not living in your father's house. You could have a life, you know. And you go, oh, Rob, I don't think so.
Up to this point, Michael had only been with one girlfriend, his childhood sweetheart, Tatum O'Neal. Tatum described the relationship as a wonderful friendship. It was also in New York that the eccentricities that would characterize Michael's life started to become apparent, as Rob Cohen found when he took him home from Studio 54.
Never forget, he had boxed crates and crates and crates of Perrier all over the apartment. I said, Michael, what are you, like, really thirsty? And he goes, oh no, I bathe in it. I don't drink it, I bathe in it. And I said, you bathe in Perrier? And he said, yeah, I like the bubbles. Right? You like the bubbles? And I often wondered if he named his chimp Bubbles because of that, right? That he liked the bubbles.
For the people around him, Michael's ambivalence to sex was puzzling.
I sat with him, I said, hey, Mike, you're in an age where you're gonna start to interact with women a lot. And sometimes you may not feel, just judging by the interaction of the family, said you may not have anyone to talk to about stuff.
You know, you ever want to talk about this stuff? Girls? Anything. All you gotta do is ask me. Okay. You know I'll be there. I mean it, man.
It's any time, and I'll give you my 2 cents. You know, I've kind of lived okay already, and maybe I can help you.
But I already got someone. Great. Diana Ross.
That was his answer. I went, oh, okay, well then, I guess you don't have to call me then.
Michael, you in effect dance for a living and sing too.
Though Michael was still emotionally struggling to embrace adulthood, he was slowly managing to free himself from the family.
Jackson, you don't have it so bad. What are you escaping from?
No, I'm not escaping from anything. I'm just, it's a change of pace.
But the Jacksons were never going to let Michael escape without a fight. For Michael, leaving Motown to go to Epic was more than moving to a different label with his brothers. Epic offered him support outside of his family to enable his career as a solo artist, and Michael grasped the opportunity with both hands.
This was a coming out party with regard to him writing, him being involved in his own music.
Michael realized that if he started writing his own songs as well as performing them, it would make him more powerful. The man who found being an adult so emotionally difficult was proving to be a smart and ruthless operator in his career. It was a big risk, though. Michael had never written songs before, and his first attempt was nearly a disaster.
Doom 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 doom. Right, for 20 minutes.
Oh man.
And it just kept going.
It's one chord. It's one fucking chord.
So the Michael eventually comes in and sings a lead vocal. Dance, let's shout, shake your body. Now understand, I'm hearing this verse melody that is so dissonant to that bass line.
Oh, man, we gotta shake this up a little.
I'm supposed to come up with a record here, so I just piled everything onto that I could possibly, and on the chord, percussion, everything, and like backwards tambourine. I called a friend of mine. I said, can you put this through the board? Don't add anything, nothing. Can I have some blank tape over there? Yeah, okay. He said, what do you want me to do? I said, just record this to that tape. And I have my hand on the volume fader. And I'm like this. And it goes from the beginning of the song. 3 minutes. There you go. There's your 340 single, ready to go. Ship it.
Creative success, however, did not bring freedom for Michael. The video for Shake Your Body Down makes it clear what the Jackson family expected from him. Michael was the front man who wore the same uniform and danced the same steps to the same tune as his brothers.
And I do know that I want you.
But while Michael desperately wanted to be his own man, the lessons of his childhood would continue to haunt him.
I just can't control my fear.
During the recording of their first album for Epic, Destiny, producer Bobby Colomby got a sense of the darker forces at work within Michael.
He throws his headphones down and runs out of the studio. Why did he leave? I have no idea what's going on. He's flipping out. He's just dancing like crazy.
What the hell are you doing? You okay?
I'm better than okay.
So what's with it?
I just can't listen to this song and not dance. I gotta get it out of me.
I can't stand there and sing this section until I've got this out of my system.
Where'd you learn how to dance like that?
Like what?
So fast.
Running away. Running away from my father.
That was the first ominous moment. Interesting.
Come on, let's lay it down.
Michael now had a taste of what success on his own might look like. But Destiny was a huge hit for the Jacksons, and in 1979, a major worldwide tour was launched off the back of it. 127 shows across 3 continents, with Michael singing lead for his brothers.
It must have been hard for him to return to that role once he had a vision that he might be able to operate a Michael Jackson story on his own.
Michael was determined to make it and to make it to be the biggest star in the world, and he became that. And he just had to, barrier after barrier had to be broken down, and it took a while.
During the tour, Michael started to go truly solo. His collaborator on The Wiz, Quincy Jones, was keen to make a record with him.
I heard you pull in.
They sent a car. I'm doing a solo album next.
Oh, no, you are not.
Yes, I am, Joe. And there ain't nothing you can do about it.
You're gonna do another record with your brothers. I am your father. All of this was for you, you know. All of this was for you. Every damn bit of it.
Joe had always aspired to keep Michael as the kid brother in the band, singing mainstream bubblegum pop. But Quincy Jones would be a very different kind of mentor. Where Joe was domineering and critical, seeking to contain Michael's talent, Quincy was encouraging, collaborative, guiding Michael to embrace his own creative process.
He comes in and he got the eye of the tiger. I mean, I have never seen a singer light up a song like that. I mean, you know, the napalm explosion in Apocalypse Now, it was like that in a recording booth.
Michael developed a strong signature sound, but it was his raw, now unfettered emotion that pushed him to greatness.
We start from the beginning, start over again.
Under Joe, Michael had felt insecure and disempowered. Under Quincy, he could freely express himself in a safe place. This was an altogether different type of fathering.
He was secure, and you could feel it on the record. He was telling stories, and each record, he was very involved.
Quincy showed Michael how to take the best of his previous work and build on it, to give the audience a fresh sound that felt familiar. It was a trick that Michael would use on each of his albums.
You listen to don't force it to get enough, da-da. It's dum 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 dum. It's not that different from Shake Your Body. It's kind of the same thing. The only difference is the bridge. Ba-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da.
This time there were no brothers in the video. Even when he needed more dancers, there were just more Michaels. His point was made. When Off the Wall spawned 2 #1 hits, selling over 20 million copies, earning Michael millions of dollars, it was clear that professionally he was now free from his family.
I couldn't believe it. It was historic. It was incredible. I said, this is going to be huge, which it was.
But Michael's professional maturity didn't translate into a personal one. He was still tied to the emotional bonds of the Jackson family, continuing to live in the family home and still suffering from the same issues of racism that had plagued his time back on the Chitlin circuit.
Michael Jackson is still an urban artist for a lot of people because he's a black kid. And so it's always been more difficult for your artistry to be taken seriously.
At the Grammys in 1980, Off the Wall was only nominated for 2 awards. The song Don't Stop Till You Get Enough won Michael the Best R&B Vocal Performance.
I think that he was pretty clear that Off the Wall's snub at the Grammys was at least related to race. Maybe people weren't like, we're not gonna let that black guy win, but that people didn't recognize the music because the maker was black.
Michael found his failure at the Grammys incredibly hard to deal with. He sulked at the Jackson home for weeks on end and cried endlessly. His childlike inability to deal with the perceived rejection was so extreme that his family worried he was losing it.
Please, get up. You've been there for days.
But from the ashes came a determination.
The start of the revolution of Michael Jackson came from a period of self-doubts and re-examination, introspection.
Michael, tell me what's wrong.
He questioned where to go next and what are the things he wanted to do.
The next one. Next one's gonna set the whole world on fire.
Eventually, the solution for Michael was a simple one. To erase the hurt of the Grammys, the brutality of his father, and the pain of his lost childhood, he would have to do something truly extraordinary. But so successful was this solution that in the end, it destroyed him. By the age of just 24, Michael Jackson was well on his way to becoming the greatest pop star ever. But while his mastery of pop music and performance was divine, his mastery of himself was far more troubled.
He never developed that skin, what we call a thick skin. This was a man so sensitive that he insisted on staying childlike.
In the video for Billie Jean, Michael is dynamic and accomplished, but also cautiously taking one step at a time.
I think he stepped in very tentatively, almost like the way he stepped on those little colored blocks in Billie Jean. Symbolically, that little passageway of things lighting up kind of led to the opening of his career.
The video and the song hint at the complexities of Michael's own inner world. Billie Jean tells the story of an obsessive fan convinced that Michael Jackson is the father of her child.
I think it was him finding his voice not only as a musical artist, not only as a dancer, not only as a physical solo performer, but also behind the scenes and creatively.
In the video, the sinister detective pursues Michael relentlessly. Michael continually denies he is the father. The effect on the viewer and listener is almost like experiencing a private dream Michael has had. Billie Jean was the first single from a new album, Thriller. By now, Michael was an established solo artist in his own right, but there were still many people who couldn't separate him from the Jacksons.
Barry.
In the spring of 1983, Michael's old label Motown planned a major televised extravaganza to celebrate its 25th birthday.
Barry put together a musical variety show to reunite all those people. And it was a very good show, and it was a very good time for that show.
I want Michael Jackson.
If Berry Gordy needed Michael for the show, Joe and Michael's brothers needed him even more.
I'm not talking to you.
You get back here, boy.
I don't have to listen to a word you say.
The rise of Michael's star had inevitably led to the demise of their own.
Your brothers need you, Michael.
I don't need them.
You will do what I tell you to do.
No, I will not.
You are a member of this family and a part of a singing group no matter what you do.
It was Berry Gordy who had to go see Michael Jackson and say, can you come back and do this with us? Not because we want you, not because we'd like to have you, but because it won't mean anything if you're not there.
If I do this thing, I want to have a solo spot. And I want to do Billie Jean.
Once again, Michael the careerist saw an opportunity and ruthlessly exploited it.
It was an artist who was declaring, I have these roots that belong to this group of people, but I also created something all unto myself.
It will be the only one.
Negotiating with Michael Jackson was becoming a tough deal.
What the hell? I do love that song. All right.
On March 25th, 1983, the Jackson 5 came together on stage for the first time in 7 years. It was a landmark performance, a show-stopping medley of their greatest hits, and the crowd went wild. But it was what happened next that changed music history forever.
Michael was able to do a song with the brothers, and then he broke away from the brothers that minute with the white glove on and that blue sequin jacket, and he did his Billie Jean thing.
The way the audience reacted in that moment, the way that we all reacted, we were literally watching a king be crowned. And then you have Michael Jackson's moonwalk. The Motown 25 performance happened to align with the point at which people had video cassette recorders in their homes for the first time. So you could watch it over and over and over again which we did.
But once again, Michael's success was tinged with dissatisfaction. Years of practicing to perfection under the stern eye of his father meant that he fixated on one element of his performance.
After the show, he was disappointed, even though it was one of the greatest performances that anybody had ever seen. He had turned and he got on his toes and he wanted to stay on his toes longer, but he came down quick. So he fixated on that. He just wanted that moment to be just a little longer.
But the success was short-lived. In the summer of 1983, Thriller started to slip in the album chart. Michael was determined to stop the slide by making a video for the title track. Backstage footage reveals elaborate sets, costumes, makeup, prosthetics, and a crack core of dancers overseen by top Hollywood director John Landis, with Michael physically transforming into something strange and unfamiliar. The most famous music video of all time would also prove to be an eerie prophecy of where Michael's life was heading.
While we were working together on Thriller, I remember him teaching us, and we got to this part where you did this little pulse, and he would be like, okay, now you gotta see the back teeth when you do the growl. You gotta bada, chill, bada, and he would do and he goes, no, you gotta so you see the back teeth. And I went, and then when I would watch in the mirror, I went, oh, because it changes your facial expression. Like you get the growl, you chew on the dance.
At one level, Thriller is a corny take on 50s horror films. On another level, Michael reveals himself as an uncanny shapeshifter.
Are you all right?
Get away!
He transmogrifies from clean-cut adolescent to werewolf and then zombie, defying his straight-jacketed upbringing, rebelling against his family and even his God.
The fact that he decides to play with monsters and demons and satanic elements when he comes from a family, particularly a mother, that's super duper religious and has a pretty hard line about what kinds of imagery we're to talk about and what kind of imagery we're not, I don't think that's an accident.
Exodus 20:4-45. You must not make for yourself a carved image or a form like anything that is in the heavens above.
I'm not trying to be a carved image. I just want to bring...
This is for your sake. Or a form...
If Thriller was Michael's attempt to cast off his religious upbringing, he failed.
I still believe. I know the truth. I preach
Your film is in praise of the devil himself. It's just so worth one song.
I think that was the first time I saw confusion in him. Why would people think I was doing something bad when I was only trying to do something fun and good?
Although Michael was at the height of his success, he could never quite cut the apron strings.
I want to do what's right. And now I'm gonna burn in hell for it. John, I just wanted to make a good, fun short film, not to purposefully scare people or do anything bad. I want to do what's right.
Michael had already rejected his father.
Then I want you to destroy it. All of it, every frame.
But his mother's opinion still held sway.
No one must ever see this video.
The first thing John Landis did was protect Michael's work from Michael and his guilt. He then showed Michael how he could be an artist and still be his mother's son. Michael's $500,000 gamble paid off. The single hit #1, the third track of the album to top Billboard. Thriller became the biggest-selling album ever, and Michael Jackson was suddenly free. At the 1984 Grammy Awards, he cleaned up.
He's getting Grammy. He really just didn't know what to say. Getting all those Grammys, it was, I love you, and thank you, and I love you, and thank you.
Michael won a record-breaking 8 awards, including Album of the Year.
He was happy, he was satisfied. He felt he had justice. When Nares recognized his talent, this time with Thriller, he was happy.
Michael's success brought more power and money than any recording artist since Elvis. He was beholden to nothing and no one, but he belonged to everyone.
I think he was public 24 hours a day. I don't think there was a real private part of him. A real inside person, I don't know that it really existed.
Michael Jackson had achieved everything he had dreamed of, but he was ill-equipped to deal with any of it emotionally. Offstage, he was shy, ill at ease with anyone other than children or animals. The height of his success marked the start of his downfall. In 1984, just after the release of Thriller, Michael's mother, Catherine, persuaded him to rejoin the Jackson 5 to film a Pepsi commercial. It would change his life forever.
It was strange to me. Maybe he did it for the brothers, because he certainly was on top of the world.
Michael was now so successful in his own right that granting a favor to his brothers was easier than before. But ever the businessman, it was his music they would be singing, and his moves they would be dancing. The second commercial was filmed as a live concert on January 27, 1984. Again, with all the brothers.
We had enough takes, but we wanted more. The agency wanted bigger. So the pyrotechnics department decided to make it more. His hair was full of inflammable material. And they set off a spark. I don't think Michael knew it until he was down. I mean, the film shows that he came down and then all of a sudden he was grabbing, it looked like he was trying to take off his jacket because I think he thought his jacket was on fire. But it wasn't, it was the hair went up and the crown caught fire.
He burnt the back of his head. He was on fire. This was not a mild burn.
As Michael was wheeled out, his mind was not on himself. It was on his image.
Wait. My glove. I need my silver glove. My silver glove.
Like a security blanket. The baby has a bottle. The glove was like a bottle to him.
So in that moment, Michael is able to recognize that I need to create a lasting image here that also shows that Michael Jackson is still happening, guys. And the easiest way to do that is with this glove.
In this instant, it became clear that there were two Michael Jacksons. The real Michael Jackson, badly injured and lying on a hospital bed, and Michael Jackson, the mirror image, a product for the world to consume.
Third-degree burns involve unbelievably painful. So undoubtedly, he needed painkillers. You don't survive something like that without them.
His relationship to painkillers began at that point. And it didn't stop.
Michael was under the knife for hours. Surgeons cut away the dead skin and inserted tissue expanders under his scalp.
He had balloons implanted in his head to keep the shape, surgery. I mean, it was a really big deal.
By this point, though, Michael was no stranger to operations. He'd already undergone 2 bouts of plastic surgery. To begin with, he said he was insecure about his looks.
He wrote about his nose and how his father would make fun of his nose, and he always felt self-conscious about it, so he did something about it. Just like thousands and thousands of performers do.
Nonetheless, Michael went beyond the usual nose job. Over the next 6 years, plastic surgery would become almost a form of self-harm.
I think the plastic surgery was an external manifestation of the confusion he was feeling about who he truly was. I think when you go to that extreme, you're trying to find a face that fits this new thing that you're becoming.
I think Michael realized that he had enough money to do whatever he wanted to do. And he wanted to be Peter Pan.
Michael was modeling himself on a fictional boy who never grew up because he was afraid to be an adult.
You identify with him?
Totally.
You don't want to grow up?
No, I am Peter Pan.
This was the child inside demanding to turn the clock back and relive childhood on his terms and his alone. Like all children, he had no idea of the cost.
Michael never mentioned the plastic surgery at all. It was more like the elephant in the room. It's like, come on, you know, you're talking to me. But he never discussed it, so I didn't feel it was right for me to discuss it.
And it was when you...
Michael did discuss his appearance with Oprah Winfrey, who asked the point-blank question.
Controversy as to, are you bleaching your skin? And is your skin lighter because you don't like being black?
Michael, unused to being held accountable, was defensive.
Number one, this is the situation. I have a skin disorder that destroys the pigmentation of the skin. It's something that I cannot help.
To make matters worse, Michael was working in an industry that was fickle and unforgiving. The emphasis on fame and novelty would erode his already fragile psyche.
Here today, gone later today. That kind of sums up pop and rock music. So you have to keep reinventing yourself in every possible way. From your dress, the way you look, the hair.
Michael, though, crossed a line. Presented with the giant train set of fame, he started to play with the press.
I think Michael, to some degree, fell into that I want to be on every cover of every magazine and I want to be mentioned every 5 minutes. And I think that was part of his MO to be successful, is this constant publicity.
In early 1984, Michael leaked a photo of himself in an oxygen chamber and spread rumors that he would take it on tour to extend his lifespan.
I think this is nice. I think we should push this, but not too much.
It was more schoolboy prank than sinister manipulation.
And Michael played it, absolutely. He told me about illusions. Michael says, my whole thing is an illusion. He said, I put on a surgical mask and I walk across down Knightsbridge or whatever. Virtually every single newspaper in the world will print a picture of it.
Michael, in his childish glee, failed to understand the consequences of fibbing. If he didn't tell the truth, the press wouldn't either. And now they came after him. The man in the mirror slowly metamorphosized into Wacko Jacko.
I said, Mike, if I had Bruce Springsteen's head and I put it on top of a giraffe and I sent that picture to the National Enquirer, they'd send it back saying, what the hell is this? If I put your head on a giraffe's neck and sent it to the Inquirer, it would be front cover page. Absolutely. What? Why? I said, because the image that's being projected of you is that you're like a weird guy.
As Michael watched his carefully created image disintegrate, he struggled to understand that it was he who had facilitated it.
He would cry sometimes with me when we were alone in the trailer, and he would ask me, why do people do this? Why are they so mean? What do they want? And it broke his heart to the point of tears. I mean, it really confounded him and disturbed him.
Michael Jackson had now lost control of the man in the mirror. His reliance on painkillers pushed him even further inwards. He was haunted by his childhood ghosts, and as reality receded, he decided to fly away. Like Peter Pan, he went to Neverland. At 30 years old, Michael was still living on the Jackson family compound. Now he wanted a family and a home of his own. He settled on a ranch 130 miles northwest of Los Angeles. Michael renamed the property Neverland Valley, a homage to Peter Pan, the boy who never grew up. From the get-go, this was no ordinary celebrity compound.
I think Michael was just trying to create his own world for himself. He had a full-size steam train. He had a full-size, well, maybe a 300-seat cinema there. He had a zoo.
In 1988, Michael moved in with Bubbles, the chimp.
And many very famous people that have the kind of disjointed upbringings end up with some unusual pets in their home when they have enough money, you know, so. And he was hanging out with you know, like a chimpanzee.
Michael built Neverland to recreate a childhood lost to hard work and a violent father. A carefree family retreat for Michael and his young friends.
Michael might have had a very angry and discipline-oriented father, but at least there was somebody who was telling him, don't do that. When he lost that, he went into a world where people never told him, don't do that.
Michael had lost Quincy, too. After creative differences recording his album Bad, released in 1987.
Once he removed Quincy Jones from his circle of advisors, his father was long gone. Who would say no to him at this point? There isn't anyone.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna build a water park on the other side of this mountain.
Michael loved kids. His hanging out, his building his little, you know, arcade or whatever, that little circus at his house. He really did love kids.
Michael, can we go on any ride? Yeah, sure.
He enjoyed seeing them play, watching them grow, teaching them things because he was such an avid reader. I think that's part of why he wanted a zoo at Neverland, to show people the animals up close and the wonders of the world.
Michael described himself as the loneliest person on the planet. So Michael invited poor, underprivileged and sick children, along with their families, to come and enjoy Neverland. He also craved more intimate relationships.
Michael had sleepovers. Well, you probably had sleepovers as a kid. There was only one difference between Michael's sleepovers and your sleepovers. Yeah, he had little kids, because that's what excited him, and we're not talking sexually at all.
Hey, I got an awesome idea.
Yeah?
Let's make a top 6 wishes list.
Sure. I got a pen and paper.
Oh, awesome.
Here you go.
Michael bonded with several young boys, and in February 1993, he invited 13-year-old Jordan Chandler for a sleepover.
Number 6.
Play forever.
Oh, awesome.
I think he liked to get in bed with other kids because I think that's when he was happiest, as a kid. He had the brothers, and if the father was on a raging thing, safety was in that bed with the brothers.
Okay, wait.
I never thought it was perverted or in any way wrong. Was it wise? No, but understandable.
In terms of the forensics of what happened, I don't know. No one knows. And the trials that have gone down have concluded we don't think anything happened.
Time around
You're
them.
never gonna see him again. Are you okay?
No.
Touch him.
But I'm not
Touch
like
him.
that.
As Michael spent more and more time with Jordan, his parents, Evan and June, became increasingly concerned about their son sharing a bed with a 35-year-old man.
Jordan, you have to tell him the truth. Please don't go.
If Michael couldn't have other people's children, perhaps he could have his own. He dated child stars Tatum O'Neal and Brooke Shields in the past. Now, he dated Lisa Marie Presley, the daughter of Elvis. She'd also grown up in the glare of the spotlight.
Wine, please.
The attraction between Michael and Lisa Marie was immediate.
Chateau Lafite. The best for a lady. I love your smile.
Oh, really?
Yes.
For possibly the first time, Michael had found a lover.
May I?
Yes.
This was a shot at a normal life, with a wife and family.
I think that they genuinely connected. I think they genuinely understood something about what it means to grow up in this industry that neither of them could find someone else who understood.
Lisa Marie may have thought her childhood had prepared her for life with Michael. Then, Evan Chandler alleged that Michael had sexually molested Jordan. On December 20th, 1993, the LAPD's Sexually Exploited Child Unit came to Neverland to investigate.
Can you stand on the chair, please?
Do we have to?
We have to, sir.
Jordan claimed that Michael had distinguishing marks on his genitals and buttocks.
You remove the robe, please, sir. Can you take your shorts off, please, sir? Can you lift your penis up, sir, please? We need to get close-ups and from all angles.
The police photographed Michael's genitalia in an attempt to corroborate Jordan Chandler's evidence.
Can we stop this now? Please, can we stop this now? Please, we stop this now.
I am not guilty of these allegations, but if I am guilty of anything, it is of giving all that I have to give to help children all over the world. It is of enjoying through them the childhood that I missed myself.
Throughout the Jordan Chandler scandal, Lisa Marie stood by her man. She thought Michael was a little strange and immature. She didn't believe he was a pedophile.
I am totally innocent.
Although no criminal charges were ever pressed, Michael agreed to pay $1.5 million each to June and Evan Chandler. Jordan got $15 million. It was a public humiliation, although Michael was now free to marry Lisa Marie. The private ceremony was on May 24th, 1994. From the beginning, it was a stormy marriage. At the MTV Awards that year, Michael kissed Lisa Marie in public. "I hated it," she said. "I felt used like a prop." Michael, for his part, thought that the kiss made great TV. Years later, Lisa Marie revealed intimate details of their marriage to Oprah Winfrey.
Was it a consummated marriage? Oh my God, Oprah! I have to ask that question. What? And you all know damn well you want to know. That certainly wasn't at the top of my agenda, but I mean, it was a real marriage, like between husband and wife.
Yeah.
It was a consummated marriage.
Yep.
It was. Okay, that's all.
I wasn't seeing, yeah, that's all.
And Lisa Marie's mother, Priscilla Presley, shared her insight.
I got it. Okay.
I do think that there was an agenda there too, though, because I think he wanted children, and he wanted her children.
Initially, Michael and Lisa Marie wanted their own family. Yet Michael continued to enjoy the company of other people's children behind Lisa Marie's back.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Don't you care about how that makes me look? You going on vacation with 2 kids? You are the most selfish person I have ever met.
I love you very much.
No,
But I
you
also
don't, Michael.
love
That
the
is a
children.
lie. I won't. I can't, Michael. I can't listen to you anymore.
Please,
I'm leaving.
Lisa,
I am going,
wait,
Michael.
please.
I have had enough.
No,
of
Lisa,
this. And
wait,
you,
no,
and
I
not
know.
me. I'm really going this time. You hear this sound? This is the sound of me being gone.
Michael was desperate for Lisa Marie to have his kids. For Lisa Marie, though, Michael was just too much. She said, "I think he needs a parent, and maybe shouldn't be one himself yet." Michael and Lisa Marie divorced in 1996. In losing her, Michael had lost the ideal family he had hoped for. Now, he would have to settle for any family he could get. Despite his divorce from Lisa Marie, Michael knew he wanted a family. Children of his own.
He always was into children. He liked the energy of the young people and the beauty, of the wondering that they did, because he always seemed to keep that wonder.
And Michael realized that to have kids, he would have to face the reality that he was once again single. Although for Michael, reality would always be a slippery thing to grasp. Debbie Rowe was a nurse who worked for Michael's dermatologist. In 1995, she made him an extraordinary offer, as she later admitted in a candid interview.
He said he really wanted to be a dad, and I said, so be a dad. And she looked at me puzzled, and I said, let me do this. I want to do this. You've been so good to me. You're such a great friend. Please let me do this.
They married, and Debbie gave birth to their son on February 13th, 1997. At last, Michael had a childhood he could cherish. Not his own, but Prince Michael Jackson's. Michael wanted more children, and this time turned to a friend for help, Mark Lester, a fellow child star who had the title role in the film Oliver. Michael and Mark had known each other since meeting in the 70s.
Michael was finding it difficult to conceive, and he knew I had 4 kids. He phoned me up out of the blue and said, would I be a sperm donor for him? And I thought, are you having a laugh? I thought you were pulling my leg. It was just April the 1st. And he was, no, I mean. So I said, yeah, well, what the hell, why not?
Paris Jackson was born on April 3rd, 1998.
There was talk about Paris being connected to me biologically, but which I don't know either way, but the fact is Michael, he brought her up. He brought her up as his own child. So as far as I'm concerned, Paris Jackson is Michael Jackson's daughter.
Hi. I see you've got the Star Wars shoes.
Debbie had Michael's children, but she was to have no part in their childhood. Michael wanted total control, a single parent, assisted by a team of nannies working around the clock. Debbie divorced Michael in 1999.
Okay, here we go. Abu, 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 Abu. Yes, Abu.
Michael's third child, Prince Michael II, was born to an unknown mother on February 21st, 2002.
I love my children very much. Yes.
Michael gave him the nickname Blanket and hid all his children under blankets or masks to protect their identities in public.
That's what she does.
I think he just wanted to make sure that they weren't in the gilded cage that he was, although obviously Michael had accepted his own fate, but then why should the children?
When Michael showed Blanket to crowds outside a Berlin hotel, he was protecting his identity while endangering his life. The press verdict was brutal. Michael wasn't fit to be a father. For all the strangeness and the errors of judgment, Michael made a good stab at parenthood.
I think Michael was a good father because he had the time to be. When the kids were around, he wasn't recording, he was still writing, but he wasn't touring. So he could dedicate a lot of his time, or all of his time, pretty much all his time to his children.
Michael saved his children from the upbringing he had. He couldn't, however, save himself. He never learned to smell danger. In 2002, documentary maker Martin Bashir filmed Michael at home over 6 months. Living with him, another young friend, Gavin Arvizo. The 12-year-old Gavin had just recovered from cancer, and Michael offered to help.
What is it, Gavin, about Michael that makes him connect so well with children?
Because he's really a child at heart. He acts just like a child. He knows how a child thinks.
Once again, Michael got too close for his own good.
There was one night I stood in there, I asked him if I could stay in the bedroom. And he let me stay in the bedroom. And I was like, Michael, you can sleep on the bed. And he was like, no, you sleep on the bed, sleep on the bed. We're like, no, you sleep on the bed. And then he finally said, okay, if you love me, you sleep on the bed. I was like, oh, man. And so I finally slept on the bed. But it was fun that night.
I slept on the floor.
The next thing I heard was that the mother had got the son to push these charges forward, and it was like, oh my God. And Michael was really, really, really upset by the whole thing. I mean, he felt absolutely devastated.
Michael faced 14 charges of child molestation and administering an intoxicating agent.
Disheveled, seemingly confused, a man in distress.
The trial began on January 31st, 2005.
This whole thing with the trial and the accusations that were made about him and the pedophile and all that, it really wore him down, his health-wise. I mean, it hurt him.
After a grueling 5-month trial, the jury cleared Michael of all charges. By 2009, he hadn't done an album in 8 years or a major tour in 12. Now he was broke.
I love you. I really do. You have to know that. I love you so much.
On March 5th, 2009, Michael announced, "This is it." 50 performances at the O2 Arena in London.
This is the final curtain call. Okay? And I'll see you in July.
This Is It was driven obviously because of money, because he owed so much money and he did not want to do that tour. He was very tired and he was in a lot of pain. Not just pain from the accident, but all the pain from all those years of these incredible physical shows he put on too.
With pain came the painkillers. Michael hired a personal physician, Conrad Murray, to prescribe them, and sedatives to help him sleep.
What Michael was doing to sleep was putting himself in a coma, basically. It's not a restful sleep, but at least he was gone for a while.
In May, a few weeks before he was due to start This Is It, Michael phoned Murray. He's barely coherent, heavily dosed.
I didn't have a childhood. I had no childhood because it hurt, you know? It hurt.
On the night of June 25th, 2009, Conrad Murray administered 2 anti-anxiety drugs and an intravenous dose of propofol, an anesthetic.
Fire paramedic 33, what is your address of emergency?
Yes, sir. I need an ambulance as soon as possible, sir.
Just after midnight, Michael stopped breathing.
Good evening. We have breaking news for you tonight. The singer Michael Jackson is reported to have died from a heart attack.
His death was the ultimate cost of being the greatest entertainer in the world.
It's a loss. It's still a loss. It's still a loss.
And God bless his soul and his kid's soul. He was truly missed. Truly missed.
Michael Jackson was a child star who, despite his adult fame, could never grow up. A Peter Pan. For his millions of fans, his legacy will be his music. Yet his greatest legacy may be in giving his children what he never had.
Just wanted to say,
Childhood.
ever since I was born, Daddy has been the best father you could ever imagine. And I just wanted to say I love him so much.
Potato.